Thursday, December 31st, 2020, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So yes, usually at the end of the year, we look forward to see what could be in store for the next year. But before I start, I like to say that I remember watching George W. Bush Sr., and I couldn't find the interview online anymore. Maybe they thought it was best to take it out of the internet. But he was interviewed after he was in office, of course, when he was in his retirement. It probably was about maybe 15, 20 years ago. And the interviewer asked him, so do you watch the news? Do you watch television? And he said, I don't need to. I know what's going to come out in the news the day before. So yes, 2020 for us, mere mortals, so to speak, has been like a black swan. We didn't see this coming, 2020, but the people in charge of the world, the globalists, I personally think they, like George W. Bush Sr. said, they knew it was coming. It wasn't news for them. And I'm not going to go further into that, but their plans are probably going to continue. Or not probably, they're continuing into 2021. They want to bring in a new kind of world. They want to fix many problems that they've created themselves and that most people think that they're best in solving, right? The majority of the public, they don't see it, of course. And on this channel, we do see that. And that's why sometimes it's frustrating, but we need to keep going. 2020 for our channel was a very good year. We had the most new subscribers ever. All the metrics were the best ever. So yeah, we can thrive in any kind of times. We just need to make sure we don't listen to government. Govern your mind, right? That's what it means. Some people also say that it could mean that the government lies. Mendacity, government. So there's many definitions that you could use for that word. And yes, they are exerting power and control over us in the physical world through the lockdowns, through making it very hard for us to plan to do anything, to go abroad, to visit friends and families in other countries. But they can't control what's up here, the mind, right? So my best advice, or what I try to do, and I know it's hard, is to try to not listen to the government and also their propaganda arm, which is the media. It's not the free press. It's not the fourth estate anymore. It's melded into the state, really. That pillar of independence is gone out the window, I would say. It's very clear for anyone to see. And I think we've been seeing it for many years. But 2020 marked really the end of independent thought in the mainstream. Unfortunately, these people still have a lot of power. And a lot of people swear by what they say. But it doesn't take that much to see that these people are all in cahoots. So, but I think 2021, yes, they're going to continue. They're pushing for more higher tiers. They're saying that the jab will solve everything, even though this disease, if you catch it, you have a more than 99.5% chance of surviving. So they talk about it as if it would solve everything. And I think that's crazy. But people have been scared into thinking they have to do something about it, mainly because they physically stopped us from doing things. So, and before I go forward and look at what I'm seeing for the markets for currencies in 2021. Just want to go over this website here. It's www.gov.uk. So it's the UK government website. And I've been checking this for months because I was really shocked because they gave guidance. High consequence infectious diseases, HCID. So as you can see here, and you can check that yourself. I'm going to put a link to it below in the description if you don't believe me. But it still says, as of 19th of March 2020, the disease is no longer considered to be a high consequence infectious disease, HCID, in the UK. So this hasn't changed. And if you remember well, the lockdown was started on March 23rd. So now I'm going to scroll down to the definition of HCID. Just keep in mind that the current disease that we have is not considered HCID anymore by the government. But it says in the UK, a high consequence infectious disease, HCID, is defined according to the following criteria. So here we go. Acute infectious disease typically has a high case fatality rate, may not have any effective prophylaxis or treatment, often difficult to recognize and detect rapidly, ability to spread in the community and within healthcare settings, requires an enhanced individual population system response to ensure it is managed effectively, efficiently, and safely. But I mean, it's crazy. As you can see, from March 19th, the current disease is no longer considered that. And they're doing everything as if it was. Why don't they change that? And is it so hard for people in the BBC, for people in the Daily Mail, for people in the Daily Telegraph, in the FT, or other news channels to basically look at this page and start asking questions? So that's why I think they're part of an agenda. It can only be. Maybe this video is going to be censored, but I'm not making anything up. I'm just looking at the government website. Anyway, enough of what went on in 2020. What's going to go on in 2021? It's always very difficult, as you saw last year, to know what's going to happen. And I think it's going to be the same in 2021. I've been listening or reading about people saying that the 20s is going to be like the Roaring 20s 100 years ago, because there was like a sharp and not very protracted Great Depression right after World War I in 1920. Government didn't interfere, though. That's the thing. I think Jim Rickards has spoken about that. There was very little government back then. So yes, things flushed out. There was liquidation, and the economy picked up in the Roaring 20s. But what people forget, in the Roaring 20s, America had accumulated a lot of gold and reserves. And apart from fighting that 1 year during World War I, America really was the supermarket for Europe. It provided everything. American businessmen made a fortune during World War I. And also a lot of, as I said, money flowed into the US. If you read War is a Racket by Smedley Butler, he talks about how many millionaires were created as a result of World War I. So Europe was decimated, of course, and the Roaring 20s, in my opinion, was partly because America was flush with cash, but also it happened because the British, under Chancellor Churchill, or finance minister equivalent, decided to go back on a gold standard in 1926 at the same rate that they were on the gold standard before World War I, which didn't make sense. Why did it didn't make sense? Well, because during World War I, gold standard was suspended, and Britain created loads of debt, printed money out of thin air, basically, to fight the war. So they should have gone back at a higher rate, right? They should have revalued the price of gold, or they should have raised interest rates to destroy a lot of that debt, but they didn't. And what the New York Fed did, and this is well known, the New York Fed kept interest rates low in the second part of the 20s in order to keep the British pound pegged at the right level. And that's what created the stock market boom as well. And I would say, as you can see here, US debt to GDP, federal debt to GDP, look at what it did after World War I. It jumped, but it was still way below 50%. And look where we're now. And this is not just America, but the whole world. So I'm not too sure if we're going to get the roaring 20s. If anything, I think it looks like the monetary and fiscal authorities want more and more debt, more and more money printing, more and more spending. Of course, there will come a point where that's not sustainable anymore. And when is that point? Well, it's the crack up boom, when people lose confidence in the currency, because we need to remember always that the currency is the flip side of the debt in a fiat currency system. Or the other way for things to implode is for a deflationary collapse. So my view hasn't changed, and it hasn't changed from a year ago, because even though I didn't know what was going to happen this year, I knew that the Fed was reversing everything. We had the repo crisis. They were going to have to keep printing, just maybe not at the pace that they did this year. But nothing's changed. Even countries that are considered deflationary, if you look at their currencies, like the Japanese yen in particular, we are like at 200,000 yen per troy ounce of gold. And over a decade ago, we were around 60,000. So we don't have Goldilocks in the monetary sense like we did from the mid 80s, maybe to the early 2000s. There is no Goldilocks anymore in the world of money and interest rates. So when that happens, there's only a couple of currencies that will protect you. The currencies that have a track record, or the monies that have a track record for thousands of years, and that's physical gold and silver. So I don't think things are going to change in terms of the fiscal and monetary policy. So we're going to continue to see weaker fiat currencies, paper currencies. Yes, the dollar is at an almost 3-year low right now. But it's not just the dollar that's going to sink. All fiat currencies are going to sink. They're going to sink against real things like precious metals, the other commodities, which are still really undervalued and are beginning to show signs of life. I think it's really important as well to have tangible goods like land, if you can afford, farms, fine wine, everything that's of good quality, I think, is important to have. Yes, there are people who say, oh, you can't get married to positions, but you look at the very wealthy families from Europe, and I don't think we even know their names, because they've been around for hundreds of years. And what they have is land, a lot of vineyards and things like that. I think Jim Rickards spoke about that a few years, because he met some of these people in Italy some years ago. And they said, yeah, we keep hold of our land, our vineyards, and our gold, arts, and all these things. I'm not saying, of course, that we need to do that, but just get the idea that real things will continue to do well. And what about the stock market? Well, the stock market is basically you're investing in a business. So I think you need to know the business if you're going to invest in the business. And that's all I have to say about that. My father used to tell us, me and my sisters, when we were younger, because let's say my sisters would say, oh, we want to open this shop. like fashion shop. And my dad would say, what do you know about that? You need to get a job first in a shop and learn about it. So it's the same thing for investments. And yes, do your homework. So yeah, I'm afraid I don't have really a crystal ball. I don't want to say where the price of this and that will be. But one thing I do know is that the paper currencies, the fiat currencies, are going to continue to lose value, and you can extrapolate from there. So Billy's here, of course, today. He wasn't here yesterday because I got up quite early. He's a bit sneaky. We come down, and then he goes out in the garden, and I do his eyes with his, he needs treatment every day because he's got dry eye, but he's perfect now from his ulcer a few weeks ago. And then he sneaked upstairs. I had to go get him. So he's feeling kind of lazy. So that's it. I mean, I'm not a religious person, really, in terms of going to church. I was, of course, in Brazil. Most people are Roman Catholics, but my parents didn't go to church. But I did my first communion when I was at boarding school, and I don't profess to know the Bible at all. But a lot of people are talking about how things are biblical, and someone mentioned this verse from the book of Psalms, and I hope this will happen this year. It says, or in 2021, and I quote, "For they intended evil against thee, they imagine a mischievous device, which they're not able to perform." So I translated that into today, into the real world, as the globalists scared the world with a fake pandemic, but they failed in bringing about their great reset. So that's what I hope for 2021. And actually, it's the book of Psalms 21 verse 11. So there is a 21 in there. Not that it means much, I guess. But with that, let's look at where the markets are this morning. I think it will be a half day as usual on the 31st. It's 8:50 a.m. London. Gold got up above 1900 overnight. Right now we're at 1892, down just over $2. The low has been 1885. Silver is come off a little bit. We're down about 0.2%, 26.47. The high's been 26.72. Silver's looking good. I think the gold-silver ratio, that is usually a signal for the overall precious metals or monetary metals. If silver outperforms, it will take everything with it. Right now, we're at key levels in terms of support in that ratio. We just need to see silver take the lead a little bit. About the stock market, yesterday I tweeted that the Dow made an all-time high yesterday versus confetti. Well, when you can create trillions and trillions out of thin air, does that currency really mean anything? And I think that's one of the reasons why the stock market is so high. Right now, the Dow is down 30 points, which is really meaningless in a market that's like worth 30,400 or thereabouts. S&P is down slightly. NASDAQ is unchanged. So it's fairly quiet this morning. The fiat currencies, the pound's a little stronger, 1/3%, 136.68. And I know the price of gold and pounds has corrected a lot from the highs this year, but we've had a wild ride, of course, because of the Brexit thing and other things. But don't get fooled into thinking that the British pound is a strong currency. They're all really sinking. They're all rubbish, really, the fiat currencies. And they all kind of alternate in terms of dropping a lot versus real money. The euro this morning is at 123.02, so up slightly, 123 handle. I mean, that's the recent high, I would say. Maybe a little more, but still pretty strong. The dollar is unchanged versus the yen, 103.12. What else have we got? Dollar yuan. Yeah, we're testing that 650 level. We actually got down to 648.76. So the dollar is under pressure versus the yuan as well. Don't forget, the Chinese yuan is a major currency, but it's not included in the dollar index. So what else have we got here? Crude oil, pretty much unchanged in the last few days. We're 48.23. The 10-year note or the 10-year yield is at 0.93%. So they've been able to keep the bond market under control for now, and we're going to have to keep an eye on that, of course. I personally think that the Fed will do everything to keep long-term interest rates under control and stop it from going higher, because with a lot of debt, you don't want to see rising interest rates. So there you go. Thank you very much for your support, your interest in the channel in 2020. Hopefully 2021 will be just as good for the channel and for you and your family. Yeah, and that's the most important thing. Looking after yourself, your family, and maybe your close friends, I guess, and extended family. But apart from that, yeah, try to avoid mainstream media, try to avoid the TV. Of course, it's difficult to do that, but if you were asleep in 2020 and you woke up today and you look outside, things seem the same. So there you go. If you enjoyed this long ramble, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Parler, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a happy new year, prosperous new year, healthy new year, and all the best, really. Take care. Bye.